It starts small. A message left on scene. A joke that cuts a little too precisely. A silence that feels intentional. You brush it off. Teenagers being teenagers. But here's the uncomfortable part. Most manipulation doesn't begin with power. It begins with practice. And teenagers are practicing. Not because they're evil, because they're learning. According to behavioral studies, adolescence is the peak period for social experimentation. Between ages 13 and 19, the brain is literally rewiring itself, especially the parts responsible for reward, risk, and identity, which means something simple but dangerous. They are testing what works on people, not in theory, in real time, on friends, on parents, on you. And once something works, it sticks. This matters now more than ever because today's teenager isn't just navigating school or family, they're navigating social ecosystems, group chats, algorithms, attention economies, where influence is currency. And influence rewards manipulation. So let's break it down. Not the dramatic version, the quiet one, the one that actually works. First, there's emotional mirroring. A teenager meets someone new. Within minutes, they adjust. Tone, humor, interests. You like music? They love music. You hate school? They hate it more. You feel misunderstood? Suddenly, they understand you perfectly. It feels natural, almost comforting. But here's the mechanism. The brain trusts familiarity. When someone reflects you, your guard drops fast. And teenagers learn this instinctively. Not from books, but from repetition. They notice who gets accepted. They copy the pattern. They refine it. And over time, it stops being imitation and becomes strategy. Then comes selective vulnerability. This one is subtle. They share something personal, just enough to create trust, not enough to create risk. I don't tell this to anyone. I've been dealing with a lot. It feels like honesty, but it's calibrated. Because vulnerability creates obligation. When someone opens up, you feel pulled to respond, to match, to care. And once you care, your decisions change. Teenagers figure this out early, not consciously, but effectively. Next, there's social positioning. In every group, there's an invisible map. Who matters, who doesn't, who decides. Teenagers are extremely sensitive to this map, so they experiment. They ignore messages just enough to seem busy. They respond unpredictably to create tension. They give attention, then withdraw it. This isn't random behavior. It's intermittent reinforcement, the same principle used in gambling systems. Unpredictable rewards are more addictive than consistent ones. And teenagers, without knowing the term, learn the effect. If someone doesn't always reply, you think about them more. If someone's inconsistent, you try harder. It's irrational, but it works. And once it works, it spreads. Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable. Teenagers aren't just influenced by their environment. They're optimizing for it. Think about the feedback loop. A manipulative behavior leads to social gain, more attention, more control, higher status. That reward reinforces the behavior. And because teenage brains are highly sensitive to reward signals, the reinforcement is stronger than it would be in adults. So the behavior evolves. What started as harmless testing becomes refined technique, not because they planned it, because the system trained them. But there's another layer: group dynamics. Individually, a teenager might hesitate. In a group, that hesitation disappears. Responsibility diffuses. Actions escalate. Suddenly, exclusion becomes entertainment. Rumors become bonding. Manipulation becomes normalized. And here's the irony. Most teenagers hate being manipulated. They just don't recognize when they're doing it. Because from their perspective, it feels like survival. Fitting in, standing out, staying relevant, all at the same time. And that creates a strange contradiction. They crave authenticity while practicing strategy. They want honesty, but reward performance. So what you see isn't hypocrisy, it's adaptation. Now, let's look at the numbers. Studies suggest that peer approval activates the same reward centers in the brain as money or food. In teenagers, that activation is amplified, meaning social success isn't just nice, it's neurologically addictive. And addiction changes behavior. It prioritizes short-term reward over long-term consequences. So a teenager might manipulate a friend, not because they don't care, but because in that moment the reward outweighs the cost. And the brain is wired to choose reward, every time, until something breaks. A friendship, a reputation, trust. And when that happens, there's usually confusion, because the system that taught them what works never taught them what it costs. Now, zoom out. This isn't just about teenagers. It's about a generation learning influence in an environment where attention is scarce, competition is constant, and authenticity is negotiable. What they're practicing now doesn't disappear. It scales into adulthood, into workplaces, into relationships. So the real question isn't whether teenagers use dark psychology. They do. The real question is, if manipulation is learned through reward and the system keeps rewarding it, at what point does it stop being a phase and start becoming identity?